Okay, so number 36 asks us, which of the following is not a whole number power of square root of 7 plus the square root of 29i? So it asks us to use de Moivre's theorem. So we know that that is r equals the radical of x squared plus y squared. And then we know that theta equals the inverse tan of y over x. So we have to plug in, this is x and this is considered y. So we're just going to plug these into our equations. So that would be r equals the radical of 7 quantity squared plus the radical of 29. We leave out the I, quantity squared. So basically that leaves us with r equals the radical of these radicals and the square cancel out, 7 plus 29. So r is equal to the square root of 36, and the square root of 36 is 6. So we know that r is 6. Now we have to find theta. So theta is equal to the inverse tangent of y, which is the radical 29, divided by x, which is radical 7. So we plug that into our calculator, and this is in degrees. As you notice, these are in degrees. All of these are degrees in the multiple choice answers. So we have to make sure that we are in degree mode in our calculator when we plug tan inverse of radical 29 divided by radical 7 into our calculator. And our calculator should tell us that theta is equal to 63.8. So now that we know r and theta, we can use de Moivre's theorem to figure out which of these is not a whole number power of radical 7 plus radical 29i. Now basically what this theorem tells us is that if you want to take z, so z is equal to the radical 7 plus radical 29i. So basically what it says is if we want to take z to a power, so let's say z to the second power, then what we do is we take r to the same power as z. So since r is 6, you take 6 to the second power. And then cis, which cis stands for, it's the same thing as down here, cosine plus I sine. Cis is just a short way of saying that. It takes the c from cosine, then the I and the s from sine. So cis, and then you have your angle, which we found theta was 63.8. And the theorem tells us that when we take z to a power, we take that power and we multiply it by the angle. So, for example, z to the second power equals 6, also to that second power, r to the power, and then cis, and then the angle times the power. So in this case, 63.8 times 2. So when we plug that into our calculator, or do it in our head, 6 squared is 36, and then cis, and 63.8 times 2 is 127.4. So if we look down here, we see that it says 36 and cosine of 23 plus I sine of 23, which is the same thing as saying cis of 23, so 36 cis of 23. And as we can see, this is not the correct answer. So it's not a whole number power of radical 7 plus radical 29, so therefore it is the correct answer. Now, it happened to be the first answer. I'm going to go through and show you how you can show that these are correct. So what I do is you just go along, so z radical 3, and that would mean that 6 has to be cubed. And basically what I do is, before I finish writing it out, I make sure that the 6 to the power of whatever you're raising z to equals this. So in this case, 6 to the power of 3 does equal 216, so I'm going to continue. So this will be 6 radical 3 cis, and then you go back to your original theta, which is 63.8, and you multiply that by 3. So this comes out to be z to the power of 3, equals 216 cis, and then 63.8 times 3 is equivalent to 191.4. And as we can see, when you look over at answer choice B, 216 cosine of 191.5. So I'm a little off because when I rounded my angle. So this is correct. It is a whole number power of radical 7 plus radical 29i. So therefore it is a whole power and it is not the correct answer. Then we go, so z to the 4th is next. And we figure out that z to the 4th, that means that you raise r to the same power, which is 4. And 6 to the 4th power does equal 1296. So I'm going to continue cis original theta 63.8, multiply it by the 4, which is what we're raising z and r to, and we get that z to the 4th equals 1296 cis 255.2. And as we can see, answer choice C matches with what we just got, so therefore it is a whole number power, and that means that it is not the correct answer. Okay, so now that we've done z to the radical, or z to the power 4, we need to continue moving on. Now, I'm going to go up here to continue because I kind of ran out of space. Okay, so the next would be z to the 5. Now, as you notice, I'm going to kind of use this little shortcut to help me out and save me some time. So this would, since we're raising z to the 5th power, then that means we would raise 6 to the 5th power. And if you type that into your calculator, you notice that it is not the same as the r value of d. So therefore, we can just move on to the next power until we get to this power, or to this r value. So z to the power of 6, that would be 6 to the power of 6, and that is still not 279,936. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to z to the power of 7, and when you do 6 to the power of 7, you do get 279,936. So I'm going to continue with this. So 6 to the power of 7 cis, and then the original theta value, 63.8, times 7. So this means that z to the power of 7 equals 279,936. Cis and 63.8 times 7 is going to give us 446.6. Now you might be saying, well, that doesn't equal, that isn't what D says. Now the reason is because we went over 360, so we're going to need to subtract 360 from this theta value. So this will give us z to the power of 7 now equals 279,936 cis of 86.6, and as you can see, that is equal to letter D, which is why it is a whole power, and therefore, since the question is asking for which one is not, D is not the correct answer. And the reason that I got 0.6 and the answer says 0.8 is just because I rounded, when I rounded my theta value, I only rounded it to the 10th place, so that caused a little bit of rounding issues, but it's really close, so therefore it is a whole number power, and it is not the correct answer. So the correct answer to this question is letter A.